starting with two creations, A, man, B, a living soul. You can ask questions on Kabbalah.tv, and some questions related to the study matter will be asked here during the lesson. So, the writings of Baal Sulam, or Kabbalah for the Student, The Freedom, 398, two creations, A, man, B, a living soul. From the above, we can clearly understand the verse, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul," or nefesh chaya. Here we find two creations. One, man himself. B, the living soul itself. The verse says that in the beginning man was created as dust from the ground, a collection of molecules in which resides the essence of man, meaning his will to receive. That force, the will to receive, is present in every element of reality, as we have explained above. Also, all four types emerged from them. 1, still, 2, vegetative, 3, animate, and 4, speaking. In that respect, man has no advantage over any part of creation. This is the meaning of the verse in the words, "dust from the ground." However, we have already seen that this force, called the will to receive, cannot exist without dressing and acting in a desired object. And this action is called life. And accordingly, we find that before man has arrived at the human forms of reception of pleasure, which differ from those of other created beings, he is still considered a lifeless, dead person, since his will to receive has no place in which to dress and manifest its actions, which are the manifestations of life. This is the meaning of the verse, "and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life," which is the general form of reception suitable for humans. The word nishmat, or breath of, comes from the word samin, or placing the ground for him, which is like value. And the origin of the word breath is understood from the verse in Job, "The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty has given me life." And see the commentary of the Malbim there. The word soul, neshama, has the same syntax structure as the words missing, or nifkad, accused, or ne'esham, and accused, ne'eshama, in the female form. And the meaning of the words "and breathed into his nostrils" is that he instills a soul, or neshama, in one's internality and an appreciation of life, which is the sum of the forms that are worthy of reception into his will to receive. Then, that force, the will to receive, which was enclosed in his molecules, has found a place in which to dress and act, meaning in those forms of reception that he had obtained from the Creator. And this action is called life, as we have explained above. And the verse ends with, "and man became a living soul." This means that since the will to receive has begun to act by the measures of those forms of reception, life instantly manifested in it, and it became a living soul. However, prior to the attainment of those forms of reception, although the force of the will to receive had been imprinted in him, it is still considered a lifeless body, since it has no place in which to appear and to manifest in action. As we have seen above, although man's essence is only the will to receive, it is still taken as half of a whole. It must clothe in a reality that comes its way. For this reason, it and the image of possession it depicts are literally one. For otherwise, it would not be able to exist for even a moment. Therefore, when the machine of the body is at its peak, meaning until his middle age, his ego stands upright in all the height imprinted in him at birth. Because of this, he feels within him a large and powerful measure of the will to receive. In other words, he craves great wealth and honor and anything that comes his way. This is so because of the perfection of man's ego, which attracts shapes of structures and concepts that it dresses in and sustains itself through them. But when half his life is through, then begin the days of the decline. By their content, these are his dying days, because a person does not die in an instant, just as he did not receive his life in an instant. Rather, his candle, being his ego, withers and dies bit by bit, and along with it die the images of the possessions he wishes to receive. He begins to relinquish many possessions he had dreamed of in his youth, and he gradually relinquishes great possessions according to his decline over the years. Finally, in his truly old days, when the shadow of death hovers over all his being, a person finds himself in times of no appeal, since his will to receive, his ego, has withered away. Only a tiny spark of it remains, hidden from the eye, from the clothing in some possession. Therefore, there is no appeal or hope in those days for any image of reception. Thus, we have proven that the will to receive, along with the image of the object expected to be received, are one and the same. Their manifestation is equal, their stature is equal, and so is the length of their lives. However, there is a significant distinction here in the form of the yielding at the time of the decline of life. That yielding is not a result of satiation, like a person who relinquishes food when he is full, but rather it is a result of despair. That is, when the ego begins to die during the days of decline, it senses its own weakness and approaching death. Therefore, a person lets go and gives up the dreams and hopes of his youth. Observe carefully the difference between that and the yielding due to satiation, which causes no grief and cannot be called partial death. But it is like a worker who completed his work. Indeed, relinquishment out of despair is full of pain and sorrow, and can therefore be called partial death.